Hi, my name is Liz Burrows. I'm with the Oldham County Health Department, and I work in the Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program. One thing that I do is facilitate the smoking cessation classes, and it is by far one of the favorite parts of my job because I get to work with people who are doing something amazing. They are going from being a smoker to being a non-smoker, and they are some of the strongest people I've ever met, and they really work hard at breaking the addiction to nicotine. I am really passionate about working with people who want to quit. I have some personal experience with some death in my family related to tobacco smoke. So as many people as I can help quit is what I want to do. So one thing in tobacco prevention and cessation that we're seeing that we're concerned about is the use of e-cigs. And I'm mostly concerned about it because the safety and the effectiveness of them being used as a quit aid, it's not proven in science. Their safety is not fully known. They haven't been researched. Up until recently, they haven't been regulated by the FDA. And the thing I think that scares me the most is that we're seeing our youth in Oldham County, specifically, we've done surveys, and youth across the nation who never would have picked up a traditional cigarette, who never would have started smoking. They are picking up e-cigs and they're using them. And what research has shown is that those kids who are picking it up, they might use e-cigs for a couple of years, but a lot of them will graduate on to using traditional cigarette products. And that, to me, as somebody who's been working in tobacco prevention and cessation for 10 plus years, is heartbreaking because we really want more people to be free from the addiction of nicotine than to be starting using it. So just a brief overview of e-cigs. They came on the market in the United States in about 2007, so they're relatively new in the United States. Their research is relatively new that we've been able to do on their safety, on their efficacy. They're not technically allowed to be marketed as a cessation device. So the companies that make them are not supposed to be making the claim that they can help people who smoke quit. However, we're seeing companies get around that by using testimonials on Facebook and on Twitter that are promoting them as quit aids. And I will tell you, based on my experience with the smoking cessation classes that I've done over the past 10 plus years, I have not seen anybody who has been successful in quitting traditional tobacco products by using the e-cigs. I know that there are stories out there, and I'm typically in the mold of whatever works, do it. But really, the effectiveness of these as a quit aid has not been proven. So what we have learned about e-cigs is that, or what we've heard about e-cigs, I guess from the companies that make them, is that, oh, they can help you quit. You can smoke them in places you can't smoke traditional cigarette products. They are safe. It's just water vapor. They're not addictive. They don't have nicotine. Those are some things I've heard working in the community about e-cigs. And so I definitely want to address some of those issues. The first one is that it's just water vapor. It's not just water vapor. There have been research studies done, there have been air quality studies done that show that e-cigs emit aerosol. It's not vapor, it's aerosol. Toxic gases and tiny particles are emitted when e-cigs are used, and those toxic gases and tiny particles can be absorbed and inhaled into your lungs. And not just the person using it, but the person that's around the e-cigs being used. So it is impacting our indoor air quality when people use those. The smoke that's emitted by traditional tobacco products as secondhand smoke is very similar to what the aerosol is with e-cigs. So that's one, it's just water vapor. It's not just water vapor. Now I will say also that there are so many different products of e-cigs. There are so many different kinds of e-juice that you can get. There are so many different, flavorings that trying to figure out what's in the aerosol can be very difficult. ASHRAE, which is the organization that oversees heating and air conditioning, the engineers, they have come out and said that the smoking of e-cigs, the use of e-cigs impacts the indoor air quality. So it's not just public health who's sounding an alarm, it's other independent organizations who are also noticing air quality being impacted.
So electronic cigarettes put out a dangerous mix of chemicals, toxins, and fine particles in an aerosol that you can, most of the time you can see it, sometimes you can smell it, but it does pollute the air, and we have plenty of science now to show that electronic cigarettes and electronic smoking devices do pollute the air.
When e-cigs first came into America, they were owned by independent small companies that would produce, make, and market them. Since that point, the big tobacco companies have now come in and bought out e-cigs from the small companies because they see more people quitting traditional cigarettes, so they see a market for themselves in increasing the nicotine dependence, the nicotine addiction in America through the use of e-cigs. So now, the major e-cig brands that you see are owned and produced and marketed by Lorillard, by Atria, which is Philip Morris, and by RJ Reynolds. So they have a very high stake in how successful these products are and in getting younger people addicted to nicotine through e-cigs so that they have a continuing base for use for traditional cigarettes. And research has indicated that kids who use e-cigs, who try e-cigs, they're going to end up, many of them are going to end up using traditional cigarettes, and many of them would never have started with traditional cigarettes. Another thing that we are seeing, that law enforcement is seeing some, is youth using e-cigs to smoke other substances than nicotine. E-cigs can be used to smoke marijuana, they can be used to smoke heroin, and because there's no scent associated with that, it's very easy to conceal. One thing as a parent that we need to watch out for is there are, some e-cigs look like traditional cigarettes, and those are very hard to mistake for anything else. They're either an e-cig or a traditional cigarette. However, if you go online, you can find hundreds and hundreds of e-cigs that don't look like traditional cigarettes. They look like Bling. Some of them look like plugins for outlets. You can buy Bling to decorate your own e-cig. There are tutorials online where kids can learn how to make their e-cig look just like a highlighter. Hollow out a highlighter part, put your e-cig in, and it looks like a highlighter. They can put them in cups and use the straw to inhale. So that's something as parents that we need to be watchful for. One thing that we've seen in Kentucky is an increase in calls to poison control centers because the juice that is sold to fill the cartridges for e-cigs can be toxic. The nicotine levels in there can be toxic, and we're seeing, I think they saw a 333% increase, the poison control calls did in Kentucky, asking for information on the e-cig juice. And nationwide, it's been about 161% increase. So if you have e-cigs in the house, or if you have the juice in the house, you just have to be very careful in where it's stored and that it's out of the reach of small kids. One thing that Kentucky's done that we are so very proud of is that they have passed a law saying that if you're 18 or if you're under 18, you can't purchase or possess e-cigs or the e-cigs paraphernalia. So that's wonderful as well. And we have taken that step forward.
So in Kentucky, we have 12 communities that currently cover electronic cigarettes in their smoke-free ordinances, and so that is what we recommend. And in fact, every health and scientific organization in the world recommends that cities and counties and states that have smoke-free laws cover electronic smoking devices just like any other tobacco product.
Because of what we know about e-cigs, the research that we are seeing and that's coming out, it's really underlying the point that there are significant health risks associated with using e-cigs, similar to what we see in traditional tobacco products. It is best practice to include e-cigs in policies related to indoor air, in policies related to tobacco-free campuses, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The most significant reason is the threat to public health with the increased in particles in the aerosol that's put off by e-cigs. There are toxic gases, there are silicate and metal particles, there's propylene glycol. All these things are in the aerosol that come off of e-cigs. And so to protect indoor air quality, it is recommended that e-cigs be treated just like traditional cigarettes and covered under smoke-free policies. Another reason is for enforcement purposes and just for clarity of the rules. Is it okay to smoke this in here? Is it not okay to smoke this in here? I can't use a traditional cigarette, can I use an e-cig? So that's one thing that the community can do to protect the public's health, is to treat e-cigs just as they treat traditional cigarettes, and protecting the workers that live and work in Oldham County, the residents that live and work here.
Really, it's simple. If a community has a smoke-free law, a smoke-free ordinance, that means that they prohibit people to smoke regular combustible cigarettes, cigars, other combustible tobacco products. If they are already prohibiting those things and reducing the air pollution from them, then they need to simply include electronic smoking devices, because they also pollute the air. So our experience with other communities around the state are that when they cover electronic cigarettes, it really is no big deal. In other words, people are already used to restricting tobacco products in public spaces and workplaces. So to include electronic cigarettes just makes sense. And it actually is like I said, it's no big deal. In fact, most places will call us and say, we restrict regular smoking, why aren't we already restricting e-cigarettes? Because it creates confusion for patrons and for workers. When people puff on electronic smoking devices, they get confused. So it really just makes scientific sense, it makes practical sense to include an electronic smoking device in a smoke-free ordinance or smoke-free law.